Um, Good afternoon, everyone. I'm greatly happy to be here today. It's a privilege to be the host of today's event. It's the season 2, episode 2 of the NBA-SBL Business Law Weekly in a fireside chat with our guest. My name is Adeleke Alex-Adedipe. I work at the law firm of Duale, Ovie and Alex-Adedipe, and I have the most honor and privilege of interviewing Mr. Asue Ighodalo this afternoon. I would spend just a minute to read a bit about Mr. Ighodalo so I don't already preempt some of his responses to the questions that I have for him today. Asue Ighodalo is the co-founder of Bawa & Ighodalo, one of the foremost corporate and commercial law firms in Nigeria with 15 partners and over 100 lawyers. He obtained his first degree in economics from the University of Ibadan, a law degree from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and was admitted into the Nigerian bar in July 1985. His core areas of practice are corporate and project finance, securities and capital markets, energy and natural resources, mergers and acquisitions. Sorry about that. Mr. Ighodalo sits on the board of many companies, including Nigerian breweries, Sterling Bank, where he acts as the chairman, and he also sits on the board of director of other companies. His hobbies include golfing, watching football. I hope he's not a Manchester United fan. Reading, traveling, and participating in political.
I actually am a man. So don't let's go there. You know, that's one place you just try and avoid this afternoon, okay?
All right, I'm participating in political discourse. He's married to Ifeyinwa, a furniture manufacturer and interior designer, and has a daughter, Omei, a serial entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Asue Ighodalo, our guest for today.
Thank you.
I think we just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ighodalo. So my first question, I've pretty much answered some of it, and it's very straightforward. Who is Asue Ighodalo? Outside of all of the board memberships, the fine arts, the black suits and the black tie, who is Asue Ighodalo?
Hard question, Leke. You know, it depends on who's asking, actually, you know. But seriously, I was born in 1959, 19th July, and both my parents were public servants. But at the time I was born, my father worked with Nigerian breweries, and my mother was a civil servant in Western region. I was born in Uyo, because at the time my father worked in Aba, at the Nigerian breweries plant in Aba. I was the chief accountant there. My father is an accountant, or was an accountant, and my mother an economist. My first few months of life, I grew up in Aba, and thereafter I went back with my mother to Ibadan. So I lived in Ibadan for most of my primary school years, but all my holidays were in Benin primarily, because after a few years, my father moved to Benin when the Midwestern region was created in 1963. So I spent school days in Ibadan, holidays in Benin. My father is from Edo State, and my mother was from Ondo State. My mother actually became the first woman to be appointed permanent secretary in Nigeria in 1968. I had an interesting childhood. One older sister, one younger brother. My older sister is a professional. She worked with Shell for many years. And my younger brother is a chartered accountant, but I think he's better known as a pastor. I went to primary school in Ibadan. I spent a lot of time in Mary Hill private school. Before Mary Hill, I'd gone to a school called Elele Private School. I left Mary Hill, went to King's College for my O-levels. went back to Ibadan for my A-levels, international school, went into UI to study economics. When I left UI, I went to London School of Economics to study law, came back to Nigeria, law school, and then whilst I was in England, Tokunbo Ogunbanjo and I became really good friends. So when I came back to Nigeria during the law school years, he introduced me to his father, and I did my law school externship with the firm of Chris Ogunbanjo and Co. And I guess that's where my love for the practice of the law evolved. I then started working with Chris Ogunbanjo and Co. right after law school, did my youth call with them and continued working with them. And then in 1991, in partnership with Femi Banwo, he was Femi Banwo then, we established Banwo and Ighodalo. And we've been trying to run what we hope is a solid and good law firm for the last 32 years. I got married in 1990. My wife is a business person. She makes furniture and does interiors. And like Leke said earlier, my daughter, she works with her mother, but she has a side hustle where she makes cosmetics. She makes ladies' cosmetics, ladies' wigs, and things like that. And then she looks into other, what I call hustles. So she's a serial entrepreneur, so to speak. I think most of the things Leke has said, but I think I've been a fairly blessed person. And I'm really happy to be on this chat. I've heard quite a lot about it, and I think it's a brilliant idea. I'd like to really thank the executive of the SBL for keeping up a great work. So Leke, did I properly answer your question? Or did I miss anything out that you want to know about?
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ighodalo. And I think we clearly have one thing in common from what you said. I'm from Ondo State, and your mom is from Ondo State.
Yes, sir.
so we have some kind of link somewhere. All right. So from your profile, what you said to us and what
I always wondered that we had a link, So the way you and I band together, I always wondered that there must be something more than just the law, more than just the law. Yeah.
I think the only link we don't have is the clubs we support. So we can.
We'll stay out of that one.
We can skip that for after the chat.
For today, we'll stay out of that.
Apologies, something keeps happening here, but we'll figure it out. So from your profile, you studied law. You say that your first degree in economics has impacted your practice of law, particularly considering the fact that you spend a lot of time in corporate commercial practice. Would you say that study of economics has impacted you in any way?
Greatly. That's why one of the things I do with my guys in the firm is to ensure that there's certain things that we get training on. Things around economics, around finance, around accounting. I think the fact that I studied law, that I studied economics, and that I studied a first degree greatly impacted on how I turned out as a lawyer. The ability to analyze, the ability to be very comfortable with figures and financing made my life very easy as a lawyer and allowed me to add even greater value to the work I did for my clients. So the American system where you study a first degree before you study law, I think makes a lot of sense. Not because I went through it, but because of the experiences I've benefited for going through it. So my answer to your question is that yes, most definitely. the fact that I studied a first degree and that first degree was in economics was of tremendous benefit to me. My practice in my relationships as a lawyer, and later on in life as I emerged in the boardroom. I also think it gave me certain distinctive advantages in the areas I finally settled to practice as a lawyer. So yes, without a doubt, I think, and one of the things that always bothered me was that there's always this impression that most of the people that gravitate towards the law were people that were not comfortable with numbers, and that were not numbers inclined or science inclined or analysis inclined. And that's totally untrue. All the best lawyers in the world have been people who have had things like a mathematical background. And so I think it gave me that advantage. And I'm always talking to lawyers, even in my office, outside my office. Anytime I get the opportunity to talk to a group of lawyers, particularly young lawyers, I'm always saying, you must do a lot of reading outside the law, but definitely for you to be a great lawyer, you must have the capacity to properly analyze. Because for me, the practice of the law is truly being able to analyze, look through the facts, analyze those facts, and then apply the law to your analysis of those facts, And if you're able to think in a systemic way, it's always an advantage. So yes, that's my answer to your question. I think it's been of great advantage to me.
I mean, 2 points there, and I agree with you 100%. I think that I think it's a fancy thing and it's a needed thing when a lawyer can not only just look through a financial statement, doing a due diligence, and just speak out things that are legal or regulatory issues, but you can also speak to the numbers, and you can make some analysis, and you can make contributions where necessary. And so that's one. And I think the other thing that the point you made, and I don't know whether you agree with this, is I often I would say to people that straight out of law school, then they come to you and they ask you, I want to go for my master's degree. My typical advice would be, I think you should get some work done first. You might want to know where your strengths are, what you like, what you don't like. Because there was a time. Where you found a lot of people studying oil and gas, masters in oil and gas, because oil and gas was the thing, right? Regardless of if they really had interest in oil and gas or not, right? So I think sometimes the first degree impacts what you get to do and things like that. Let me jump to your law firm quickly. Your law firm, Asue Ighodalo.
But before you jump, let me say something. Let me say something, Leke, very quickly. I agree with you.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that out of law school, I think people should take time to understand themselves and understand what they want to do as lawyers. That aids and helps how they then gravitate if they want to go into master's course. So I agree with you 100%. A year or two working is always very, very beneficial. And it helps them understand the work they do at the master's level, at the postgraduate level. So I agree with you. And it also enhances their ability to get into top law schools to study for their masters. So I agree with you. And I think that's truly the way to go anyway.
Thank you. So let's talk about Asue Ighodalo.
Okay.
What would you say are the critical factors that you can speak to in building this success story of a big law firm in Nigeria today?
Thank you. At least you considered that we're a success story, but honestly, I think we're a work in progress. I think there's still so much more to do, so much more to achieve. So we're truly work in progress. And that's how I try to convey to my guys, and that's how I see it. But without a doubt, I think any organization, any institution, and even a country, the key is the people. You must deliberately choose the people that you work with, look specifically for talent, and train the people. You must respect the people, provide for the people, but you will also expect dedication, diligence, loyalty, discipline, and hard work. So it's about the people for me. Regardless of the technological age we're in, it's all about the people. So that's the first thing. Then there's also the passion. You must have passion for the work. You must have passion for the institution. And you must also have what I call professional arrogance, not innate personal arrogance, but professional arrogance. And what do I mean when I say professional arrogance? And I say this to my guys, you know, you must insist to yourself that you're going to do the very best that you can do. And when you do the very best you can do, it'll be truly excellent. But you must insist to yourself. You must challenge yourself. You must determine in yourself that you will do the very best you can do. And I give the example of there's no successful, and let me use a sports person. There's no successful sports person that doesn't practice and practice and practice. There's no successful professional that doesn't work harder and harder and harder. We can slice it any way we want. We can look at how we're working hard. But if you don't keep on practicing and learning and teaching yourself, then you will never get to the top of the profession, whatever it is. So look at the guy that's a brain surgeon, for instance, or look at the guy that's a pilot. Whatever the profession, whatever it is you do, you must always give it your best. So for me, the people, passion, loyalty, discipline, hard work, ability to work together as a team. You know, you were talking about football, Leke. There are teams that have a lot of superstars but don't gel. And there are teams that don't have that many superstars but they gel. You know, so you must have the capability to work together as a team. And you must be humble. There's no one person that knows everything. So you must synergize. You must be humble. You must look for people that work well with you, and you must respect them. You don't have to be best friends, but you must be best work friends. You must be able to make sure you catch the ball, because sometimes some of your colleagues drop the ball. And I use the example of the Navy SEALs. You know, the Navy SEALs, the American Navy SEALs, forged itself into the greatest fighting unit in the world, 11 men and women, you know, and everybody's responsible for the other person. And that's how any successful team works. So for me, that's it. And I think we've tried to imbibe some of those things in Bawa and Ighodalo. We've succeeded on some things. Some things is still a lot of work in progress, and we'll continue working harder at it. We'll continue ensuring that we're building sustainability, and we're even building people that are much, much better than ourselves, you know, at the leadership level of the firm today. So that's the goal. And obviously, too, honestly, the grace of God Almighty is always in here somewhere. Because no matter how best you do all of these things, if the grace of the Almighty is not with you, then it doesn't work as well as you plan. So that's how I'd like to kind of summarize how we got to where we're at today. You know, that's how I'd like to summarize it.
Awesome, thank you very much, sir. And I think I like the phrase professional arrogance, right? You need to set yourself out. You need to be different. I think again, but let me just touch on something quickly. We have a lot of questions, and I must say, hand on heart, right? Some of these questions didn't come from me. When the publicity material came out, a lot of people jumped on it and they were so excited and they wanted to ask you questions. So some of those questions are from your fans out there. They want to know more about you. So basically, some things won't change. Hard work will not change regardless of technology. Loyalty would always be important, and then practice would always be important as well. But now talent is such a big issue, right? And you talk about people. How do we deal with issues around talent today? And even in the world of artificial intelligence, how do we deal with talent as an issue, particularly for us in Nigeria, where there is a huge talent flight? How do we manage things like this for us in the legal profession?
Yeah, it's been very difficult in the last few years, particularly just before and then after COVID. I'm sure in your law firm and in most other top law firms and in other professional and other institutions, we've seen the migration of talent out. And it's been really difficult, especially where you want to keep standards and you want to keep your standards of excellence, great work. But the only thing you have to continue doing is that you have to continue training people. You have to continue working hard. You need to have a conveyor belt of training and ensuring your people are excellent and you don't settle for less than excellent. It's extremely difficult. I'm sure you know that, Leke. It's extremely difficult on the top echelon of any professional organization, but you can't help it. You continue training and training. So you have in-house training, external training. The guys will go. So you may probably want to behave like some of the top four, where if they need 20 people, they employ 40 people. I know that that puts pressure on your costs, you know, but you can't help it. If you want to stay at the top as a great professional firm, you continue training your people and you continue trusting your people and you continue giving them responsibility at a younger age and building their confidence. You know, it's like sports, you know, the confident sportsman does better than the one that's not as confident, you know, so you need to put confidence in your people. And part of gaining confidence is for people to know what they're doing. People know what they're doing when you train them. And you need to also let your guys know that they shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes. What they shouldn't do is they shouldn't make the same mistake twice. You know, we're all human beings, we'll make mistakes, you know, but you should also have a system inbuilt internally where you catch the mistakes, you know. But for me, 100%, I think we just continue training. You continue looking for the best talent possible. Do not worry too much that some of them will go after year 3 or year 4. What you strive to do is to see that some that go, particularly to study, find their way back. Many won't. But you then have to keep on replicating, keep on training, keep on replicating, and do your best to ensure that you have favorable conditions where you work, that those that decide to stay in the environment will stay with you, you know, but you can do much better than that. The economic conditions of the country today make it very difficult for many people to want to stay in the environment, particularly talented people. And then the way the world has become one big open space, you know. People talk about globalization and all of that, but the world is one big open space. People stay in one part of the continent and are working in another continent. You know, that's permitted. So we will keep having all of these problems. But as the problems come, you then look for strategic solutions to the problems. And for me, you just keep training and working with people and making sure you have a nice work environment. You make sure that the remuneration of your people is extremely competitive as you can make it, and as your own revenue profiles permit. And one of the things I tell a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and firm owners is that we've gone past the world where people can be greedy. If you're greedy, your institution will not last. You should be in a position where you're going to share wealth, you're going to share revenue to the competence within your organization, because they have a choice, you know. And once you always realize that people have a choice, then you must always do best by them. So the days where the founders or the top partners kind of capture the chunk of revenue into their own pockets, for me, those days are gone if you want to build a sustainable institution. If you want to keep your institution small and tight, and there are some of our colleagues that are like that. The problem with keeping it small and tight is that you then lose the capacity of institutional memory, of building great institutions, of building 100-year-old firms. And an economy doesn't develop if it doesn't have institutions that have legacy. So I guess everybody has their own strategy. We still have a lot of our colleagues who will do their 1 or 2 man practice and then keep it that way. That's fine. But what I tell guys is that in the long run, when you build an institution, the benefits of that build will still be financial, but then there's also legacy and there's also sustainability. And that's part of what infuses into the growth of your economy. part of the problem that we have in Nigeria, where our growth pattern has been very patchy, is because we have not truly built institutions that survived. If you look back, I don't think there's any Nigerian institution that has survived at the top for 30 years consecutively. We may just be getting into that now. There are one or two banks and maybe one or two other institutions. But historically, when I was growing up, the big companies, the big firms, the big institutions, they don't exist anymore. So if we want to change the narrative for our country, there's no other way. We must build those institutions that survive. And part of what we do, or we should do in our space, you know, Leke, Tioye, Rotimi, everybody else, Asue, what we must do is we must strive to build those institutions. And it's a huge sacrifice. There's a financial sacrifice, there's a time sacrifice, and there's all sorts of sacrifice, but we must do so. We cannot just start depending on what people in government do. The private sector must complement government. If the private sector doesn't complement government, we cannot grow a country. So that's my philosophy, and that's why I am really, really gung-ho about building an institution that survives, regardless of the financial costs to me.
Thank you very much. I think you must have picked into my question paper here, because you've kind of answered the next question, which talks about partnership in law practice. And my question is simple. You can just touch on it a bit without having to say too much. Do you think that is the most appropriate model for law firms today? Because you've talked about institution, you've talked about legacy and many things like that. Do you think that partnership has got to be the way to go? Again, if you look at the Magic Circle law firms around the world, they're all partnerships, right?
Without a doubt, Leke, without a doubt. But then, you know, I will also concede that there are those who think they don't want to go that way. And extremely talented colleagues or other professionals. But for growth into the future, for enhancing the development of any economy, for enhancing the development of any country, I think partnerships are the way to go. But let me say something here. Partnerships are extremely difficult to uphold. And the first step is that you must understand yourself, and you must understand what your goals and ambitions are. And you must then find a partner that synergizes into that. It's like a marriage. You know, you want to marry, you're looking at somebody, you have your own ideas of the kind of companion or spouse you want. And partnership is even more difficult, because in a marriage, you're supposed to share money with your spouse, but it's not compulsory that you both keep joint accounts and things. In a partnership, you know, money is front and center on the table. And we all know the impact of distrust. And a lot of partnerships in Nigeria have existed since the late 40s, but none of them survived. And when I was going to go into partnership, and Femi and I, because Femi and I spent about a year talking about the kind of partnership we wanted, the kind of law firm we wanted, our dreams, our goals, our ambition. You know, if you look at it, one of the things we investigated was, why did so many law firms not survive from the 40s, from the 50s, from the 60s? They just didn't survive. And everything always nearly boiled down to money and a distrust of money issues. So we were clear that there was nothing that was going to make us not trust each other on money issues or have a quarrel, so to speak, on money issues. And one of the things that I've benefited most in my partnership with Femi and then with Ken when he joined and with my other guys is that we do not have conversations that border on dispute or money. We have our principles, we have our rules, and we follow those rules. We don't dispute. When it was just Femi and I, you know, either of us could go off for weeks, you know, whenever you came back, you never questioned how money was spent because you trusted that that money was spent diligently for the benefit of the firm. So if you're going to go into partnership, you must be going to partnership with somebody you share values with, somebody that you can trust and you share values with, and somebody that is not too, and I use this word advisedly, is not too greedy about money. You know, for me, if you do the things you should do well, in a professional way, infused with proper values and high integrity, you will always get financial reward. Now, the financial reward varies from people to people, you know, but you will always get the financial reward. It may not happen. A lot of young men, particularly these days, talk about hammer and things like that. But I tell people that in life, you know, when a child is born, the mother carries the child. The child then rests on the mother's back. The child starts crawling. The child starts walking. The child starts running. There's no child that starts running on the day they are born. There are children that walk earlier than other children, you know, but you must go through a life process. You must have capacity. You must build capacity. So for me, that's it. And if you are not, if you are valued, and we go back to the home, because parents must build those values in their kids. If you are valued, and if you are not too greedy, you need a bit of greed to push you sometimes. But if you are not too greedy and you're valued, then you go into a partnership with somebody that you're symbiotic, and that works. You know, so that's the key thing. Once you can achieve that, and then you guys have a work ethic that also fuses, and every other thing falls into place.
I think I'm benefiting more from this fireside chat than even the guest, right? I've heard so much of it. I've heard so much about partnership this week. I've heard from bankers, I've heard from tech entrepreneurs, I've heard a lot about partnership this week. And I think that one thing that everyone has continued to talk about is money, and how you should not let money just get in the way, and how money typically would want to find its way into partnership. Let's talk about SBL, which is the reason why we're here. You were once the chairman of SBL and still continue to play a big role in the growth of the association. How did you get involved with SBL, and what role do you believe the association has to play in the professional lives of lawyers today?
Okay, so it's a double-barreled question. I think, and I'm trying to recall, I think I was involved with the SBL nearly from the onset. When George was thinking of setting up the SBL, because George Itomi actually founded the SBL, you know, and then I think the NBA president at the time started looking at different sections. But for the SBL, I think George was the protagonist and the sponsor and the heartbeat of the SBL. So I think from very early on, from nearly the very beginning, he had invited me into the SBL, and actually to chair the capital markets committee of the SBL from very early on. So I've been involved in the SBL from the early days. I was more involved at different times in the early days, but I was always involved, and I always supported George, supported the executive at the time. And I thought it was a brilliant idea, because for many reasons, which was going to come back to the second part of your question. I think professionals in different aspects, particularly when we start specializing, need to be properly trained. They need to fully understand. You know, we go through the university, we go through law school, but until we start working, we're not fully properly trained for the work we're going to do and the service we're going to provide for clients. So for me, the SBL was really a good point where professionals met, where professionals could exchange ideas in specific areas of practice, like they do in the International Bar Association, and where people exchange ideas and things, and where we could talk and where we could collaborate, and where friendships formed, you know. So I think the SBL has been a great idea. One of the things I made sure I did when I was chair of the SBL was to set up a training subcommittee. Before then, we did not have a specific training subcommittee. We had trainings, but we did not have a specific training subcommittee. And I think that's when I dragged the present chairman of the SBL into the SBL actively. And I got him to chair that subcommittee. And what I tasked him with was, we must train our people. Our people must be good at what they profess they're good at. So we started this training, and I know that the training exercises still run, and it's even so much more better now. So we started that. We also had the media committee, and we did a number of things that brought general counsels and non-practicing lawyers into the fold. And I think that period in the life of the SBL was a fairly good period. And at the time I was leaving office, we had established very strong relationships with our regulators and with other practice groups. And I think we then left with some reserve in the account. And I think that was the first time that the SBL started building its own reserve. I think the SBL is a great organization, and I think it's even gotten much better since I left as chairman. People are working collaboratively together. We're forging interests and partnerships. We're training our guys. We're reaching out across bridges and divides. And I think it's such a great organization. And I'm really proud to be a member of the SBL under the present chairman and under the management that we have and the executive. But there's still a lot more to be done. And I know as we move from executive to executive, we'll have an even better organization. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, again, still on SBL. The current council of the SBL under the leadership of Dr. Deoya Defulu have also continued to make a lot of efforts in expanding the reach of the SBL across the country. From your experience and from your knowledge of the association, how best do you think we can achieve this? Some people are here listening and they're not even members. How best can we reach out as far as we can so we can achieve the objective of the organization to touch as many lives of professional lawyers as possible?
Unfortunately, for a long time, and I'm sure many people know historically that there was a short period where the SBL had problems with the larger umbrella body, the NBA. And I think a lot of that came from certain misconceptions. There was a feeling that there was this gang of Lagos lawyers that got themselves together and wanted to kind of separate themselves from the rest of the lawyers and things like that, who thought they were better than other lawyers. And there were all kinds of misconceptions. So it became an imperative when we kind of restarted, and Benga Ibode first became chairman, and I then after him, and then Ulu, and all of that. It became an imperative that we reached out through the country, through bar associations, to try and make people understand what the SBL was truly about, to try and spread the training, the collaborative synergies of the SBL. And this council, I know, is doing a lot more than we did initially, but it's really important that we do things like holding some of our trainings across the country. I know the security situation in the country makes it slightly more difficult, but I think we should expand how we train. We should expand where we have certain activities. I think we tried to do a few of that during my time. We should engage more with the other sections in the Bar Association. We should engage more with the larger Bar Association. And I think that if we do that and spread a bit across the country and spread our gospel, explain what the SBL is about, explain the true benefits of the SBL, and let a lot more people understand what we're achieving and what we've achieved and what we seek to achieve, I think, yes, we'll be able to get a lot more collaboration, we'll be able to get a lot more input. And so far, it's worked well, particularly in the last 2 or 3 executives, and it's getting better. So I think it can only get better, and there needs to be some more diversity on the executive of the SBL. And I think that's also improved, so that every lawyer in every part of the country that's a member of the SBL feels strongly part of the organization. And I've seen the diversity. It's gotten much better since my time. And I think it can only get much better going forward. But I think those are the things we need to do. It's important. We must make it inclusive. Everybody that, and you know, the thing about when you are serving or paying to serve, which is a lot of the work we do in SBL, all the people on the committee, all the people on the executive of the SBL, actually spending their time, their effort, and even their money to do the work they do, is that it's only people that are truly interested that show up. But unfortunately, we then must reach out and reach back to try and force a lot more interest so that we get the right breadth of diversity. So that's truly key. So we should not just leave it to those who show true interest. We should encourage others to show interest, you know. And it's difficult, like I said, because where you're paying to serve and you think you're not seeing immediate benefit, it's difficult. But there's an ultimate benefit. You learn more, you interact with people more, and it's easier. Leke and I become friends. When Leke has a conflict, Leke remembers me. Leke trusts me from our friendship, and he can then recommend me to where he has a conflict. That's a straightforward thing that happens all the time. And there's so many other benefits that come from it. So people should not see it in a shallow perspective of immediate gain or benefit. You know, when you sow, when you give, you always reap, you know. So I think we just need to do a lot more of that, and a lot more of that gospel selling, you know.
All right, thank you. And let's touch on some of the things that SBL has done. So SBL has worked actively with the PEBEC on ease of doing business. And one of the things that came out of that is the Business Facilitation Act, which is a good start. And SBL played a lot of role in that as well. But some people have argued that it's one thing to have the act, it's another thing to actually achieve the objectives of the act. How do you think this desired collaboration and transparency between the MDAs and businesses in Nigeria can actually work in such a way that the real impact of that act can be felt?
Okay, I'll answer that in two parts too. You know, I'm going to work hard to make sure that I convey what I truly think. First of all, I think the NBA-SBL has done a fantastic job as regards its interaction with lawmaking, especially laws that enhance and enable business and the business environment. I think the collaboration of the SBL with the NESG and the National Assembly under NASBA has been truly fantastic. So that since 2016, most of the business and economic related laws in the country have had SBL input. And we've had a lot of people like Zofu and a few others, DOA, who have led committees where they've done massive reviews of these laws, and they've done fantastic work. So I think, if nothing else, contribution of the SBL here has been fantastic, has been truly excellent. And I think the economy benefits from the work we're doing. And a lot of this work, like I said, has truly been voluntary, you know, paying to serve. So, so I'm really proud of what we've been able to achieve in that regard. So kudos to the SBL. As regards interface with MDAs, because we don't have time, I'll try and limit myself to the issue of a philosophical perspective. And we need to take a step back and look at some economics. As a country, where are we on the developmental curve? Where you are on the developmental curve determines the kind of regulation you should have. So Nigeria, for me, is still low down on the developmental curve. We're not a developed economy. At best, we're an emerging economy. Now, when you have an emerging economy, and when you look at economic history, you find out that most countries, when they're at the stage we're at now, you have truly light-handed regulation. I think we've missed thinking through our philosophy. I think we're trying to borrow regulation from developed economies, which doesn't suit the stage of development we're at. So my answer to your question is that business facilitation is great. The thinking behind it is great. The implementation from the regulatory perspective still leaves a lot to be desired. For instance, the philosophy of self-funding regulators should never occur in a country that seeks to emerge. You should have liberal regulation so that we're truly, truly encouraging at different levels and different aspects investments into the environment, and those that support investments into the environment, and those like us that advise investments into the environment. So that would be that's my take on that. I think we need to rethink our philosophy. I think Nigeria's philosophy, its economic and social philosophy in the last 50 years have not been contemporaneous with a developing country that wants to develop very quickly. So if you take a look at those countries that have developed significantly from the third world to first world status, or near first world status, you need to look at their trajectory. And there's no point reinventing the wheel. And if you follow that trajectory, our regulatory environment will be totally different. So I have these arguments every day with a lot of our regulators, particularly the vice chairman of the FCCPC, who's a brother and a very good friend. I say clearly to him that the consumer protection part of that law, I'm in 100% support of it. The competition provisions of that law are not competition provisions for an emerging or developing economy. They're competition provisions for a developed economy, and I have that argument all the time. What we need to do as a country is have an economic philosophy that aligns with economic growth. If we have that, then interactions of SBL with regulators with investors will change for the time being. So that's I have a philosophical, my thinking on this is fully philosophical. I think we need our people in government to do a lot more thinking. We're not thinking deep enough. And I'm hoping that with the new government we have now, we'll have a lot more thinkers, deep thinkers, so that our philosophy and our policies align with our goals.
Good. So I get I love the part of we need a lot more of our people in government. All right. and we all need to participate in governance somehow.
At different levels, at different levels in different ways. Yes. You don't necessarily have to be in government, but you can advise, you can support, like many of us have done, and like we in SBL have done towards the enactment and drafting of some of our laws. So we can support in different ways. So it doesn't have to be physical participation.
Yeah. So let's talk about lawyers again. And just for our viewers and our guests, please, if you have any questions, feel free to just drop your questions. We're running short on time, but I'll try to take as many as I can. But we just quickly run through the rest of my questions here. So the law school today churns out easily 5,000 lawyers a year, or if not more. And there's a general perception out there that we have too many lawyers and we have too many law firms. We can't be bigger than the economy that we sit in. What's your take on that? Do you think there are too many lawyers? There are too many law firms?
Okay. There's also an economic philosophy here, but I won't start with that. Let me just answer your question directly. No, I don't think so. Law is a fantastic foundation for very many things. So the more lawyers we produce, the more those lawyers can go to different parts of the economy. And we have so many lawyers that are not fully practicing law and are doing so many things. But the foundation of the law helps them to succeed in those things they're doing. So we have lawyers in the creative arts. We have lawyers in government. We have lawyers in politics. That's even their traditional stronghold. We have lawyers everywhere. So I don't think we are even producing enough lawyers for a country that seeks to grow very quickly. In the practice itself, we definitely don't have enough lawyers. But we also have some kind of misalignment. People, and it comes to a pricing issue. And that is sometimes why I argue with our regulators. If you, Leke, want to buy a car today, you have a variety of choices. You can buy the very inexpensive car or the second-hand car, or you can buy the very expensive and luxurious car. We must enable ourselves to have a market where people have a choice. Now, the problem with that is that those we offer services to, do they clearly know the benefit of good service? So if they clearly know the benefit of good service, then you, Leke, or Dioye, or Baba, will not worry that you are creating brilliant, first-class, well-trained lawyers. Because the cost of creating that lawyer to you makes it imperative that your fee profile will be higher than the guy that doesn't bother training his or her lawyers. So the market must be wide open, and we must have people that understand that market. So during election petitions, when people are desperate to win, they go to the litigators that they think are the best. Okay, that's what it should be. Now, I know there's some other things that people infer or insinuate, but you would really, and it's like if you have a tumor, God forbid, If you have a tumor, you will go to the brain surgeon that you think is the best, regardless the cost. Yeah. And so that's the kind of environment we should create. We should have people that understand what the service they're getting is. And I'm sure you know it. Sometimes you see documentation from other places and you wonder what's going on. How did the client accept this documentation? And it's because the client doesn't know. And because our environment allows those things to persist because the client doesn't know. And there are no repercussions to the professional that doesn't give first-class work. So my answer to your question is no, we don't have enough lawyers. We need to have even more lawyers. The key for us, which is part of what we're doing at the SBL, is to ensure that we have lawyers that are excellent, fit for purpose, first-class lawyers. I tell guys every day, if you do a documentation or a transaction in Lagos and it goes to Wall Street, anybody that picks it up in Wall Street should appreciate the quality of the work you've done. Right. You know, we shouldn't work in Nigeria and say we're working for Nigeria. There's no such thing. You're either doing excellent work or you're not. So that documentation that you prepare, if it goes on Wall Street or City of London or somewhere in Japan, you know, your professional colleague in that jurisdiction, we appreciate the quality of the work you've done. That's the level we must be at. And if you're at that level, you price yourself a bit more than the person that doesn't have that degree of excellence. So for me, honestly, we don't have enough lawyers. We need a lot more lawyers. But for me, the more important thing is that we need a lot more very good lawyers. That's the point I wish to make, you know.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ighodalo. On pricing, there's a massive crunch out there, right? And lawyers are underpricing themselves. Then you see lawyers who are underpricing other lawyers, and clients are looking for the cheapest work. In most cases, like you mentioned, they should be looking for the best service, but you find out that a lot of them don't know. So they find themselves looking for the cheapest work. How do we manage this type of situation? Because what you find out is you then end up with a lot of clients out there having to employ services of lawyers just for the sake of having a lawyer, not for the sake of doing a proper job for those clients.
It's truly a problem for us in the profession, as you well know. NBA at large, the SBL, it's truly a problem. Because I in a way, I can kind of identify with and understand the young lawyer just starting out life, he or she wants to make a mark or a name for themselves. How do they get into the transactions? How do they get known? Many think that the best way or the fastest way is to undercut and underprice. I can use us as an example in B&I. When we started out life, one of the things we told ourselves was that we will not underprice and we will not undercut, but we'll offer something unique to our clients. And that is the speed by which we conduct or we respond to the work we do for them. So we offered our clients a return of 48 hours or not longer on nearly everything we were doing. So, but I can identify with those that think the best way to get in is to undercut. But I keep telling them when I have the opportunity to talk about it, that you're underselling yourself. I look at some of the work we do here, and I look at the work that's done internationally. I know it's a different economic environment, but you know, it doesn't reflect, it doesn't show, it doesn't indicate. And then we find out that we're in an environment where many of our lawyers are underpaid, and they're underpaid because the value of service is not reflected in the fees that are earned. So it's a really difficult catch-22 situation. And I think one of the things we need to do is to keep pushing the envelope, to keep insisting on excellence. I think the market is beginning to appreciate that there are differentiations. And I'll try and give you an example. During COVID, I think in my firm, I think our revenue during COVID has been probably the highest in a long time. And when I think back at why that was, it was clear to me that people knew where to go for excellent service and did not take chances. And so we had a lot more first-time clients coming to us for the transactions or in the areas of practice they knew we were experts in. So people know. But I guess as the economy develops, as we become a better economy, as people know quality, and as we have sanctions for bad work, undercutting will reduce. And I keep telling guys that on most transactions, particularly commercial transactions, even litigation, you always have at least 3 or 4 or 5 counsel on any transaction. So when you undercut, you badly affect your pricing model and pricing model for other people. But it's difficult, because I don't see how you can explain this to a lawyer that's 3 years out of law school who's desperate to make a name for himself. But the thing is that your pricing must be commensurate with your capabilities, and the market must appreciate it. So once the market appreciates it, undercutting becomes less problematic. But for now, we're going to keep having that problem. And the only way you can differentiate yourself is the excellence of the work.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'm gonna ask one more question on pricing related issue before we jump to your board. Your board.
It's not as if pricing is tricking you small.
It's tricking everybody.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And this is in relation to Section 59 of the FCCPA. It prohibits associations of undertakings like the NBA from directly or indirectly fixing prices. Section 68 provides that FCCPA does not, however, prohibit activities of professional associations designed to develop or enforce the standards of professional qualification. Now, it is argued by some that the new NBA remuneration order with scale of charges, NBA order, is a breach of FCCPA, especially because fixing of remuneration cannot be described as necessary for developing and enforcing the standards of legal education or legal qualifications in Nigeria. They argue further that the purpose of the association activities must be setting the quality and technical requirements for qualification for practice as lawyers was held in an EU case, and not to fix fees to be charged by lawyers. So basically, the FCCPA says that you can't fix prices of an association, but you can only fix those prices if it's for the benefit of the growth of that association. But if NBA has then fixed prices in the scale of charges, NBA order, would that not be seen? And some people have argued that this is a breach of that act because fixing of prices for lawyers is not really in the growth of the association. It doesn't benefit the association per se.
I do not agree with those that argue that fixing of prices doesn't benefit the association. And let's come back. It depends on the quantum of the fix. There's a bare minimum of remuneration that lawyers and law firms should get for different types of work. Now, if you don't meet costs, then, and it's happening, the best of our people don't stay in the practice. Now, if the best of our people don't stay in the practice, what does that do for the practice of law in the long term? It diminishes the quality of service. Yeah. So the quality of service to consumers, the larger public, greatly diminishes. Excellence of practice diminishes. And then the use of the word in Section 68, like that you mentioned, enforce. Standards and high standards can never be enforced if you do not have your best lawyers in practice, and if you do not have people that feel satisfied and remunerated in practice, and well remunerated in practice. So for me, I would think that, and I'm not sure, I think it's 1C or something, the Section 68 1C is the one that talks about the exemption and talks about enforcement of high standards or something like that. I would make the argument that it is important that we enforce high standards, not just at the point of qualification, but through the life of that particular professional. If you don't do that, then the quality of service offered diminishes. If the quality of service diminishes, then that greatly impacts the whole of the economy. So for me, for those reasons, it's important that professionals stay well remunerated. We can look at the quantum of remuneration and argue that. But a basic level of remuneration that assures that our best minds stay in the practice of the law is critical. If you notice, you are seeing that particularly the men, a lot of them are in a hurry and they think the practice of the profession and the remunerative process is too slow. So you find very quickly young men jumping out of the practice of the law, selling cement, selling rice, selling all kinds of things. So you find most of our smartest, some going to finance, some going to real estate, just selling houses, different things, And so it diminishes the quality of the profession and the quality of the practice. So anything that can be done to enhance the quality of the profession, the quality of practice, the capacity of those who remain in practice, anything that can be done, I think would be exempted under the provisions of Section 60, of Section 59, And even if I think it's Section 60 or there, but that also talks about the commission giving you authority to exempt in certain circumstances. And that's because there's a realization that things done for the benefit of those associations that on the face appear to be restrictive can be exempted. So my position is I do not agree that fixing of fees, once the level of fix is at a reasonable level, is a restrictive provision that shouldn't be exempted. I think it should be exempted because I think it's for the long-term benefit of the association, long-term benefit of consumers of the service we provide, and for the long-term benefit of the development of our economy. If you have first-class lawyers, you have a first-class economy. That's my feel on this.
Great, thank you. I think it's time to leave pricing before. I think people think I like money, and I'm just talking about money.
Don't you like money? Leke, don't you like money? I guess we all do.
I like from the best.
Yeah, we all do in different degrees.
Yeah. So let's talk about your board roles. As a lawyer, you're the chairman of Sterling Bank, you're the chairman of Nigerian Breweries, Edo State Investment Summit, and many others. And you also sit on the board of Cardinal Stone Partners, Okumo Oil, Christopher Collade Foundation, Main One Cable, and many of those things. How did you start this journey, and how has that been so far?
That's an interesting question. How did I start? I don't really think I can just pinpoint and identify a start point. I think there's a combination of things that occurred that made it happen for me. And I take a step back, and it's not preaching or philosophizing or anything. I think when there are two ways in which you can get on the board, either by investment. So you invest substantially and then you take a board seat that tallies with your investment, or by nomination by others who think that you have a value to bring to the board. I think through your professional life, particularly as a business lawyer or a corporate lawyer, you come in contact with business people and investors all the time. And I think part of what investors and professional people are looking for is to have a board that consists of people that can bring in strong intellectual and governance value. Because any company that's disciplined and well-governed, 10 chances to 1 succeed, barring the unforeseen. So you really need a good board, a strong board, a board that has people of integrity and discipline. So I suspect that in my professional life, I must have run across people that thought I had value in those areas. The governance area, in possibly bringing integrity and discipline and things like that on the board, bringing legal knowledge, bringing expertise from an economic perspective. And so people thought I had value. So that's why I tell young people that if you do your best all the time, you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's looking at you. So I know that, for instance, I came onto the board of Sterling Bank because I was on another board, and some people on that other board had been watching me as I performed on this other board. And they then had a gap on Sterling Bank board, and they thought, the kind of person we want to fill that gap is Asue. I also know that my interrelationship and my activities on the Nigerian Economic Summit Group exposed me at a very early age to very many chief executives. And I think somebody must have been watching, and I must have been doing certain things that those people watching liked. So I found myself being invited to join boards, even where I had no investments whatsoever. And sometimes I had to be catching up on trying to invest after I joined the board. And every board I sit on today, every board I sit on, there's none that I asked to join the board. All of them, I was invited. Sometimes people I looked up to as chairpersons of those boards would ask me for an appointment, and I would think, oh, there's a brief for my firm or something. And the next thing, they're talking to me and asking me to join the board. So I think whatever it is we're doing, we should just continue trying to do our very best. That's key. You don't know who's watching, you don't know who's looking, you don't know who is assessing. So, and I think, again, I've just been blessed with the grace of God, and I've had those people who have believed in the value they think I can bring. There was a time I was teaching governance, and I was teaching the director's duties at the Lagos Business School. One of my students at the time invited me to join there. But so whatever it is you find yourself doing, just do your best. The advice you give your clients, make sure you give good advice all the time. When you do work for your clients, do your best, do as excellent a job as you can. When you have to advise your clients formally and informally, give them straight, good advice, regardless of what the advice may sound like, and regardless of what you think how you think they would react. So I think a combination of all those things made it possible for people to invite me, and the strangest of people I didn't even know, to invite me to join their boards. And I think it's been a great experience for me. I think I've tremendously enjoyed adding value, or trying to add value to the boards on which I sit or I sat. And I think what I can commit to professionals, young and old, is just keep doing your best in whatever you're doing. You don't know who's watching. You don't know who's looking. You don't know who thinks that you're doing well and they want you to participate in what they're doing. And also, when I talk to young lawyers, it's also been a source of some financial growth for me, because without going out of my way to look for it, you've had people come to you to ask you to invest, to ask you to participate, because, again, they think they can trust you. And so, in spite of myself, because I don't think I'm a gung-ho money person, in spite of myself, I've found people coming to me to approach me to participate in various investments, in various businesses, which have kind of made life a bit easier for me and enhanced my financial position. And that's in spite of myself. So people talk about the patient dog not eating good food or anything. But, I don't think it's technically true. I think if you do what you're doing excellently well, people will notice. And when people notice, opportunities open up. So that's why I tell people, just do your best in whatever it is you're doing.
All right, so, good. We're almost rounding up with questions, but you have about 13 questions on the Q&A. I would read. I wouldn't read everything. I'll read most of them. I've read some and I found them quite interesting. So I'll just take all of them and then I'll let you just answer. So you might just want to write them down and just answer everything at once. But not yet. I still have about 2 more questions to ask. I'm just getting very light. This is you're an extremely busy man, clearly, because we tried to do this 2 months ago or a month ago. We couldn't do it. You were traveling. You were busy. You had board meetings and many things. So how do you balance work demands?
I sincerely apologize.
No problem, sir. So how do you balance work demands and family time? Lawyers do have family. We have demands at home. People, wives, husbands are asking, why are you not back at home? How do you manage all of these things?
Okay. For me, that's truly a great question, because I think I was blessed, or I am blessed. I am extremely blessed that I married a person that, sometimes they say people let you fly. I married a person that trusted me enough to let me fly. And so the times when Femi and I practically lived in the office, my wife would bring breakfast and a change of clothes. And she had no reason whatsoever to doubt what it was I was doing. So she fully supported me. Even in our early days of practice where we had no money, she carried family, she carried her weight, so that I was free to express myself the way I wanted to express it. For instance, Femi and I said categorically that when we started our practice, we're not going to bring in clients from where we worked before. So clients were working for where we worked before, we're not going to bring them into our firm. We're going to start clean. So the first few months of our firm was totally difficult because all we did was read newspapers because we had no clients. Because for me, it was fundamentally important that I left where I worked. And for Femi, it was fundamentally important that he left where he worked with the full blessing of the people we worked for. So my relationship till today with Chief Ogubanjo is father's son. Now, if I'd left with some of his clients and all that, I'm sure that could never. And for me, that relationship was much more important than the money I would take from the clients I was leaving. And I knew, I was confident, God helping and working well, that we would build a clientele. I wasn't worried about that. But for me, my relationship with Chief Ogubanjo or with Tokunbo Ogubanjo was more important for me than the money I would get. And same thing with Femi and Chief Okuno. Femi worked with Chief Okuno. Yeah, and Chief Okuno is like his older brother. So for us, those things are important. Relationships are important, and strength of relationships. And you find that those you build those relationships with are the ones that propagate and promote your practice. So coming back to family, my wife has been fantastic. My parents, when they were alive, supportive. My brother and my sister, my daughter when she came. What I tried to do was to, regardless how busy I was, to make sure I tried to make speech day, try to make Christmas concert for my daughter, and things like that, and just try to be there. Teacher meetings with teachers and things like that, and try to be there on days that were important to her, and try to be there for her. My wife wasn't that lucky, but she devised a system. So my wife's system was that because I'm an early riser, she forced herself to become an early riser too. So she would wake at 4 a.m. and so we'd have good time, between 4 and about 5:30. And she would tell me everything she'd been doing, everything she wanted to tell me. So so she was extremely supportive. My siblings extremely supportive, and my family and my friends. The thing about friends is that as you work this way, you then have some friends who feel that you think you're getting successful, so you don't have their time, but have been blessed differently. All of my friends, in fairness, at least nearly all of my friends are truly very successful people in their own right. The envy quotient is not there or is submerged. So we've managed to, and we have this group where we try and meet once a month. It hasn't worked. So we probably meet once in 3 months now. Whenever we meet, it's like as if we saw yesterday. So if you're able to keep those relationships and you're able to keep your feet to the ground, no matter how busy you are, then it works, So I've been lucky, I've been blessed, I've been lucky, most importantly by my spouse and my family. And they've tolerated me and tolerated my absence, tolerated my idiosyncrasies. And let me tell you something, there's no person that succeeds if they do not have a spouse that trusts and tolerates them. It can't work. Either the relationship doesn't succeed or your profession doesn't succeed. One gives, and I sometimes I mentor young men and I say, something, you have to trust your wife and let her fly. You and I cannot bring up girls and expect them to end up not being able to express themselves. So there needs to be a balance. I had friends who used to say that they can't eat second day soup. Better eat second day soup. If your wife is a professional, you better just eat second day soup. She will put the soup in the fridge. If you get home before her, take the soup out and put it in the microwave and eat second day soup. So you can't tell her that she should come and be cooking for you after she's had a hard day at work. So we all have to understand all of that, and then there needs to be a lot of trust. There needs to be a lot of friendship. There needs to be a lot of understanding, and you must support each other on the spouse level for each to achieve their dreams. Once that is there and there's no frustration, I think so for me, that's how we kind of try to balance it. It's been very difficult. Sometimes we've said, okay, let's say we must have at least 2 family meals together a week. Many times I've breached it, because I've then suddenly had to go somewhere or something, but we just try. And in these days, we try and say, okay, when we're having these meals, no phones on the table, so everybody's trying to talk to everybody. So we just try and do all kinds of things to make sure you keep the family ties, and then or dinner with friends and things like that. And then we developed something during COVID where I had a lot of my daughter's friends. We used to have like weekly dinners and just, so just do things to keep the social cohesion and keep your sanity. Sometimes this work we do can turn you crazy sometimes when you overdo it. So if you don't have those buffers to keep your sanity, then you're going to be in serious trouble, serious trouble. So I think that's how I have tried to manage.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. A lot of lessons there, actually. Fantastic. Thank you very much, sir. I think we'll try to finish everything by 3:30. So I'm going to ask just one last question. But just before that, I think the good thing is you were reading newspaper. Let me just drop this quick one. When we started, 3 of us packed ourselves together in the car and we went to some man that we didn't know from somewhere. Someone had told us he was looking for a lawyer. And we went to my partner's house and we printed a proposal and we went to his office in Ikoyi. And the man looked at it, looked at us, and he said, I'll get back to you. And then we were a bit excited. And then the next day we got a call from him. No, you guys can't do the work. And everyone felt a bit rejected.
Don't worry. I can tell you plenty of those stories. There was a day Femi and I got up from our office at 9 p.m. and drove to Ibadan to try and solicit a transaction. And the guy promised us that all this, you'll get the transaction. Till today, we're still waiting to get that transaction after nearly 30 years. And Femi and I drove back to Lagos that night, and we didn't get back to Lagos till about 2 or 3 a.m. So, we've all done all these crazy things, in the name of trying to survive, in the name of trying to build a good institution. Yeah. So,
all right,
you guys have become a fantastic law firm now. So, it pays. All things pay. It does pay. It pays.
Thank you, sir. So, any last words for the SBL community before I take the questions by the guests, by the viewers?
We should just keep on doing what we're doing. Let's create a lot more diversity. Let's expand. But for me, my pet will always remain the training. We must continue training and we must build confidence in our guys, particularly the younger lawyers. I felt very bad when I went to give a talk at the bar conference, one of the bars outside Lagos. And we were just talking generally. And I discovered that a lot of the younger lawyers there barely earned 20,000 naira a month. Now, it's a reflection of very many things and the economy and things like that. But I think we need to enhance our profession so that our lawyers can have pay that actually truly take them home. And a part of it is developing, training, confidence building. So that's what, as the SBL, we must do. We must differentiate ourselves. People that are members of the SBL must be lawyers that have the capacity to command levels of remuneration that make it worthwhile. So that's part of what we must focus on. So we must train our guys. We must give them confidence. We must give them collaborative spirit. We must enable them to do teamwork. And it's important. It's extremely important. So we must focus on our younger lawyers. And it's truly so. And also kind of ask our older lawyers to appreciate the younger lawyers a lot more, try and share some of their money with some of the younger lawyers so that we can give them that confidence level. And the younger lawyers must also learn loyalty and learn discipline. But those are all the things we must try and teach at the SBL. And they don't teach you that in any school.
No, they don't teach you at the law school. Thank you very much, sir. So I'm going to run through the questions now, and you may just want to jot some of them down. So I have this anonymous attendee who says, good evening, sir. Thank you for the insightful session. What do you think about advertising and soliciting in the present realities of the legal profession? There's a Dennis Osaritin. Good afternoon. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. I'm based in Benin City, where I run a small law firm trying very hard to develop a commercial practice in an environment that is still very conservative and not receptive to our brand of practice. Please, sir, what do we do, and how can big law firms in Lagos work with small law firms so as to share experiences and build our capacity? Then I have another anonymous who says, talking about governance, Mr. Asue, are you open to work in public office? We need your skills, expertise, and technical know-how to steer the affairs of our country. There is a David Ademola. What are the possibilities of a congenital firm standing out amongst the top-tier law firms in Nigeria today? What steps are crucial? Louise says, can you provide insight into the skills of experiences that clients typically value most when working with a top-tier firm like BNI, and how can young lawyers work on owning their skills? David, what do you think about the salary packages of associates across law firms in Nigeria? Do you think it's good enough? I think you've touched on that. Buki Ogunshakin says, you have always been a man of great foresight. What challenges do you foresee as being the most impactful in shaping law firms of the future? And what strategies do you believe law firms should adopt to thrive in this evolving landscape? How do you see the law firms of 2033? Demola is here again about money. Sir, what do you think about the legal remuneration order 2023? It's clear relegation of the northern and eastern states to band 1 and 2. Anonymous, considering your wealth of experience in institution building, would you consider transferring your experience to the public sector by vying for public office? A lot of people want you to run for public office, Mr. Ighodalo. How many years should a law firm partnership expect to be in business before breaking even? Toby Babalola, good afternoon, sir. On issues of fees, how do we serve SMEs within our peculiar economy who have turnovers that do not match the standard fee expected for service? Stephen Onwoye says, thank you, sir, for a wonderful and engaging presentation. Do you think your remarkable accomplishment in law practice serves as a contributory factor in your boardroom successes? I think you also touched on that. The last one, Mr. Ighodalo, I've learned a great deal from this chat, and your story is inspirational. What would you advise that a lawyer to do to gain or upskill their commercial awareness? So those are the questions. I think some of them are interrelated, and you can just take them as you please, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for all the questions. I'll try and answer every question, and I'll try not to miss out any. On advertising and soliciting, personally, I think the world has changed. The world has changed from the time when we received law from the UK, and at that time, their position was that, and we built that into our Legal Practitioners Act, that we don't advertise. I think the world has changed. I think once the advertisement is factual, and you are not going to say what you do not have the capacity to do, I think we should look at the possibility of enabling lawyers to step out and talk about themselves. People have tried to do it in indirect ways, some of the proposals we send out and things, some of the things we put on social media about the work we've done and things like that. So people find a way to circumvent it. But the world is a big place now. We're a global village. How do people know about us? Before, it used to be word of mouth, that doesn't work well anymore. So I think I agree with you if you are of the view that we should allow certain kinds of advertisement and soliciting. But the issue for me is that we must remain dignified. We're lawyers. We must always remember we're lawyers. We're supposed to be the cream of all professions. So we must always remain dignified in what we do and how we do it. So once we can achieve that, then I think we should, with certain regulatory perspective, I think we should be able to advertise. And one of the things I didn't say earlier, and I want to say it now, and I want to say this particularly to young lawyers, nothing should ever make you talk down about a professional colleague. Nothing. You should not be striving to find work or solicit work, and then you get there and start saying that, that lake itself, they don't know what they're doing. You must never, ever, you must always even do things to enhance your professional colleagues, even where you think they didn't do as well as they should have done, because you always come back to bite. So always remember that as a young professional. Then if you talk about commercial practice in Benin, luckily, I think business is picking up in that state. Not as much as many of us would like yet, but it's picking up. A lot of commercials coming into Edo states and in Benin, but I know it's very difficult. I know that most of the work you do now will consist primarily of drafting small contracts and trying to make companies compliant regulatorily and things like that. But yes, you should have the opportunity to work with bigger firms, especially if you make friends. If you are in the SBL, you definitely will make friends. There will be things we do as the bigger law firms that we'll do in satellite states. That rather than incur the expense of sending people from our office and doing it, we would ask or we'll need friends who are reliable in those areas to do the work. So you just need to be diligent and dependable and to let people know you are available. But I agree with you, there should be better collaboration. Once there's better collaboration, you will get a lot more interest from Leke and Dioye and all these big Baba and all these big lawyers in Lagos. Rather than send their big lawyers out there to do it in Benin, they'll ask you to do it for them. And the better you do it, and the more you're successful you are at doing it, the bigger your practice will grow. So I wish you the very best. But the important thing is just stay diligent. Okay? Governance and public work. I think, one of the things is that we actually all should give back, particularly if we've been blessed. And like I told Leke initially, there are different ways of giving back. There are those who give back in elective office, appointive office, those who give advice, those who support, those who teach. Everybody should just think of what best suits them, and then they should give back that way. But give back, I agree. I think we should give back. You can offer your service pro bono in an advisory capacity to government. You can offer to pay for special advisors for people in public office so that the quality of their work is better. So there are different ways. So just look at what fits you, what works for you, and what you have the capacity for. And so that's what I would say. The issue of congenital firms standing out, again, I go back to what I've always said, every person will stand out based on the quality of excellence they provide and the quality of work they provide. If you're good at what you do, people will notice you. If you're not good at what you do, people will forget you. So you may think it's taking time, but just stay excellent and keep on working at what you do and giving it your very best. David, I've already talked about associate salaries. I think that many law firms can do better. I think so. There are some law firms that are doing very well, and I salute those law firms that are doing well because it's at a cost, but I think many law firms can do better. I think we build better firms for longer term with better quality if law firms try a bit more to better remunerate their staff. So I agree with you. And it's so much worse stepping out of Lagos, it's so much worse. So, and again, I guess it's a function of the level of practice in different areas. But I know some fantastically wealthy lawyers outside Lagos who are not doing as well by their staff. And I think people should do better. But you can't preach about this thing. It's a value thing, and it depends on each person. What do you want to create? There are those people that really don't care. The day they can't stand up from their bed, they lock up their law office and that's it. There are others that truly care, who really want to build a lasting legacy. So it depends, but I agree with you. Yeah. Buki's question, challenging in shaping firms of the future. For me, the biggest challenge will always remain people. It will always remain people. Forget AI, forget ChatGPT or whatever it is. It's going to be people. You've got to keep on investing in people, picking the right people, training the right people, and you're competing globally. So the lawyer you have in Lagos, you're competing with the law firms in New York, because there are many law firms abroad that are looking to Africa. So they want that African experts in their team. So you're competing globally. So it's always going to be about people, about training people and having the best people. The law firm in 2033 will be, I think, will be quite different from the way we are structured in as regards how service is provided. There'll be a lot more technology. There'll be a lot more commonality, but people will still remain the center. You know, when you provide service, have you tried to go to a self-service store where you have to ask questions from a machine? We all get frustrated very quickly, you know? So people are still going to provide service. They're still going to talk about service. You know, the best meetings are always the meetings where people are sitting around the table. You know, virtuality is great. You know, it allows for a lot of convenience. It reduces unnecessary travel. But I can tell you this for one, when I really want to have a very serious meeting, that better be a physical meeting. You can look into people's eyes, you can see people's body language, you can understand. If you're going to negotiate a very important transaction, never do it virtually. That would be my advice. In 2033, I don't think it's going to change. So yes, we're going to have a lot more IT, you're going to have a lot more AI, but still it's going to be people, particularly when you're providing service. Demola, we've talked about legal remuneration. I agree with you, you can't overflog it. It's worse up country, like I said. But what we need to do on this issue of remuneration, and not just legal, is remuneration in all the professions. See what happens to our doctors, you know. Best doctors, you know, very quickly they're gone. You know, so for me, I think very clearly, we must all insist on the development of a stronger and better Nigerian economy. When the economy is better, then we're all able to benefit. We must build and bake a bigger pie. So we must contribute to that, you know. The question on public office for me, you know, I actually don't know. You know, the jury's out on all of that. But I think by the time I'm done with practice, I'll be too old to be. So I'll be in a position to support people in public office. I'll be in a position to give advice. But I don't see that immediately, except something untoward or something strange happens, you know, something totally unthought of happens. But I have been in and around public office, and I would gladly support and advise, but you never can tell. You know, you never can tell. Break-even point for firms, it differs from firm to firm. What I'd like to say is that your break-even point shouldn't be soon. If your break-even point is soon, regardless of the money you quickly make as a lawyer, then you're doing something wrong. Because, you know, as you make money in your early days, you must invest into the firm. You must invest in training of yourself, training of those who work with you. You must buy the latest gadgets. You must ask for different professional journals and publications. So you must pay for them. You must subscribe and pay for them. So you're going to spend a lot of money investing in state-of-the-art gadgets. You know, you must have an office environment that makes your people want to come to work every day. So when you're making all those investments, you know, the break-even is shifted to a longer time. And you must pay your younger ones well and things like that. So it differs from person, firm to firm, structure to structure. But if you break even too early, then you're doing something wrong. That's all I can tell you. This question on how do you serve small companies, SMEs, or even the creatives? You know, creatives, you know, if you're working for creatives, they don't like paying. Or even PE firms. The PE firms don't like paying very much. But SMEs particularly and creatives, SMEs are the soul of every economy of every developing country. And it's a very interesting question because we're just having a conversation around this in my office about 2 or 3 days ago. You need to understand, you need to kind of demarcate a threshold. Maybe your threshold would be any work that's less than X amount we won't do. Or we will do a sizable number of work that's less than X amount, but we will just do this. And once we've reached our limit. We won't do more than that. But you must do SME work. Everybody must. Because the SME of today grows up to be the big institution of tomorrow, especially with your advice, if you're giving them good advice, and if there's a good governance structure. So you must just do the balancing, because you need your money today. You don't want to have too many clients that can't pay you today. If not, you yourself won't survive. So you just need to do a balancing of it. But my advice is that you must then, whether it's guts, whether it's you notice governance or you notice management, you must pick that SME that you will take a long bet with, most definitely. Accomplishment, okay, my accomplishment in law, how has it affected or enabled my boardroom success? Without a doubt. I think, and I'm not saying this for any reason, I think the well-grounded or well-crafted lawyer is the best asset in any boardroom. Many lawyers know a lot about many things. Many lawyers are experts in more than one thing. Many lawyers are grounded in governance. Now many lawyers can read balance sheets and things like that. So for me, I think it's always a major advantage. A well-governed company will always succeed in any situation. If you're well-governed, you'll be prepared for the volatile environment, you'll be prepared for the difficult times, you'll be prepared for recessions, and you will find a way to succeed. So for me, I think it's without a doubt, your experiences as a lawyer will always come as a plus for you in the boardroom. I think I have covered. Leke, is there anything I didn't cover?
Yes. No, I think you've covered everything.
Yeah.
I think you have. And if there's any question that hasn't been answered, please feel free. Mr. Ighodalo will send his responses to the secretariat, and we can take it from there. I think, and now I'm going to yield the floor to the SBL chairman, Dr. Deoye Adefulu, to give closing remarks. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining. I knew I was going to have fun with Mr. Ighodalo. We could have done this till 6 p.m., but I'm sure he has another appointment, and we have guests also watching us. Thank you very much for your time today, sir.
Yeah.
And I'll ask
Leke,
you the questions in private.
Leke, thank you very much. And thank you for your patience, honestly, because I know I really bothered you. We kept trying to fix this, and we didn't get around to fixing it, but you were truly very patient with me, and I appreciate it, and I'm very thankful. Thank you, everybody who's listened to me trying to explain a few things, and I hope I added a bit of value to your afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your really busy schedule. And I have to say that this was a fantastic experience, just again, sitting at your feet and learning from you. There are many things that we will take on board as SBL, but also as individual practitioners in our various businesses. We value your support of the SBL, and we hope that when we call upon you again, actually, we know that when we call upon you again, you surely come back, come and attend to us. So thank you again, sir. And thank you to all the members who have joined and participated. The recording of this will be available on the website, so you can go back and listen to it. Again, just learn more about how it is to become the kind of practitioner that Mr. Ighodalo is, and obviously the boardroom player that he is. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to our Assistant Secretary for organizing this and doing a fantastic job as usual. Wishing you all the best and looking forward to the session next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm extremely proud of it. From where we're both coming from, I'm extremely proud of it. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Leke, you owe me lunch or dinner so soon. Huh? Don't run away.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Deoye. And thank you, Mr. Ighodalo. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.